The colony on Kepler 442b was supposed to be a paradise. Green forests stretched across rolling hills. Rivers of clean water flowed through valleys. 20,000 humans had built their homes there over 15 years. They called it New Eden, and for a while, it truly felt like heaven. Commander Daniel Reyes had visited New Eden twice before. He remembered the children playing in the streets. He remembered the smell of fresh bread from the bakeries. He remembered how the colonists had smiled and waved at his crew when the starship Endurance passed overhead. Now, standing in the ashes of that same colony, Daniel felt something break inside him. "No survivors, sir," Lieutenant Amy Graves reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "We've scanned the entire settlement. Everyone is gone." Daniel walked through what had once been the main square. The fountain was destroyed. The school was burned to the ground. Bodies lay everywhere, covered in blue tarps by his crew. Men, women, children, old people who had come here to retire in peace. Young families who had dreamed of building a new future. All of them were dead. Who did this? Daniel asked. Amy handed him a data tablet. "We recovered footage from the security systems. The attackers were Virati." Daniel knew the name. The Virati were a reptilian species from the Outer Rim. They stood 8 feet tall, with thick green scales and claws that could tear through metal. They were known throughout the galaxy as hunters. For thousands of years, they had traveled from world to world, hunting whatever creatures they found interesting. Humans had only been in space for 300 years. They had met the Virati at a trade conference 5 years ago. The meeting had been tense but peaceful. The Virati had looked at the human delegates with strange expressions. At the time, Daniel thought it was curiosity. Now he understood. It was hunger. "Play the footage," Daniel said. Amy hesitated. "Sir, it's difficult to watch." "Play it." The footage showed the attack from the beginning. Virati ships had descended from orbit without warning. Hundreds of hunters had poured out, armed with plasma rifles and traditional bladed weapons. They had spread through the colony like a wave of death, but they didn't simply kill the colonists. They hunted them. Daniel watched as Virati hunters chased families through the forests. They let some colonists run for hours before catching them. They took recordings of each kill. They posed with bodies and laughed in their hissing language. They collected trophies, hands, heads, and other things Daniel couldn't bear to identify. The worst part was the children. The Virati had separated the children from their parents. They had hunted the little ones last, saving them as some kind of special prize. They broadcast this, Amy said quietly, back to their homeworld. It was entertainment for them. They called it the soft hunt. Daniel turned off the tablet. His hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped. Something cold had settled in his chest, replacing the grief with something harder. "The soft hunt," he repeated. "Yes, sir. Apparently, they consider humans easy prey. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons. They think we're helpless." Daniel looked around at the destruction. 20,000 people. 20,000 lives ended for sport. For entertainment. For fun. "Contact Earth Command," he said. "Tell them everything. Send all the footage. What do you think they'll do, sir?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He knelt down beside a small body covered in blue tarp. A child's shoe stuck out from underneath. Pink, with cartoon flowers on it. Some little girl had picked out those shoes, excited to wear them. Now she would never wear anything again. "I don't know what Earth will do," Daniel finally said. "But I know what we are going to do, sir. We are going to remember every single name. Every person who died here. And we are going to make sure the Virati remember them too." The news reached Earth 3 weeks later. At first, people didn't believe it. Surely, this was a mistake. Surely no species would attack human civilians without warning. Surely there was some misunderstanding. But the footage was real. The bodies were real. The grief was real. Rachel Monroe lost her sister in the attack. Her sister had moved to New Eden 5 years ago with her husband and 2 daughters. Now, they were all gone. Rachel sat in her apartment in Chicago, watching the news coverage, feeling like the world had ended. Across the ocean in London, Gregory Palmer learned that his son had died trying to protect the colony school. His son had been a teacher. He had moved to space because he wanted to inspire children to dream big. Now he was dead because some aliens thought humans were fun to chase. In Tokyo, Maria Santos received a message from the colonial authority. Her parents had been among the first settlers on New Eden. They had worked so hard to build that colony. They had sent her pictures every week, showing their garden, their neighbors, their peaceful life. Now there would be no more pictures. All across Earth, people mourned. They held funerals for loved ones whose bodies couldn't even be recovered. They cried. They hugged each other. They asked a question that had no good answer. Why? But as the days passed, the grief began to change. It didn't disappear. Grief never truly disappears. But it made room for something else. Something that had been sleeping inside humanity for a very long time. The Galactic Concord expected humans to file a formal complaint. That was what new species did when they were wronged. They complained. They asked for help. They requested sanctions against the attacker. Sometimes they retreated to safer space and hoped the problem would go away. Humanity did none of these things. Instead, the human governments held a secret meeting. Leaders from every nation on Earth gathered in a single room. They watched the footage from New Eden together. They read the names of every victim. They looked at photographs of families who would never come home. And then, for the first time in human history, every nation agreed on the same thing. There would be no complaint. There would be no retreat. There would be no forgiveness. There would only be justice. Cold, patient, absolute justice. The Verati had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were hunting prey. They thought humans were soft and helpless. They thought they could kill 20,000 people and face no consequences. They were about to learn how wrong they were, because humanity was not prey. Humanity had never been prey. On Earth, millions of years ago, human ancestors had survived by being the most determined hunters the planet had ever seen. They couldn't run fast. They couldn't fight with claws. But they could chase their prey for days without stopping. They could track an animal until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could be patient in ways no other creature could match. The Verati had awakened something ancient. Something that had been buried under centuries of civilization and peace. Something that would not rest until every hunter who had touched New Eden was found. The hunt was about to begin. But this time, the humans would not be the prey. Admiral Patricia Cole was 63 years old. She had gray hair, tired eyes, and bad knees that hurt when it rained. In her entire career, she had never fired a weapon in combat. She was a planner, a thinker, a woman who solved problems with her mind instead of her fists. But Patricia Cole also knew something that the Verati did not understand. She knew what humans really were. She stood before a room full of officers aboard the carrier Independence. These were the best military minds humanity had. Captains, commanders, generals. They had come from every nation, every background, every corner of human space. They were here because they had all watched the same footage. They had all felt the same cold anger. The Verati think we are prey, Patricia began. They measured our bodies and found us weak. No claws, no fangs, no armor. They looked at us and saw easy targets. She pulled up an image on the main screen. It showed an ancient painting from Earth. Cave art from 40,000 years ago. Stick figures of humans surrounding a massive mammoth. Our ancestors killed this animal. It was 10 times their size. It could crush a human with one step. But humans hunted it to extinction. Not because we were stronger. Not because we were faster. Because we were patient. She changed the image. Now it showed human runners chasing an antelope across an African plain. This is what we are. Persistent predators. Our ancestors would chase an animal for days. They didn't need to be fast. They just needed to keep going. The prey would run and run until its heart gave out. Until it couldn't take another step. And then our ancestors would walk up to it and finish the job. Captain Samuel West leaned forward. Admiral, are you suggesting we chase the variety? I am suggesting that we do what humans have always done. We don't give up. We don't stop. We don't get tired. We follow our enemy until they can't run anymore. She pulled up a map of the galaxy. The variety homeworld was 300 light years away. Their empire stretched across 40 star systems. They had a military that was 10 times larger than humanity's. They have more ships than us. They have better weapons than us. In a straight fight, they would destroy us. So we will not fight straight. Patricia pointed to the dark spaces between stars. The empty regions where no one traveled. We will gather here. Small groups. Silent running. No communication. No signals. It will take 8 months to position all our forces. The variety will never notice because they are not looking for us. Why would they? We are just prey. General Anthony Cruz raised his hand. What happens after we are in position? What happens after we are in position? Patricia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then we begin the hunt. Not against their military. Not against their homeworld. Against the hunters themselves. Every single variety who participated in the attack on New Eden. Everyone who killed our people. Everyone who watched and laughed. She displayed a list on the screen. Names. Hundreds of names. The footage from New Eden had captured the identity of every variety hunter. These are our targets. We know who they are. We know where they live. We know their families, their habits, their schedules. And one by one, we are going to find them. The room was silent. Every officer understood what Patricia was saying. This was not going to be a war. Wars had rules. Wars had boundaries. Wars ended with treaties and handshakes. This was going to be a hunt. And it would not end until every name on that list was crossed off. While Patricia planned, teams of humans were already moving through variety space. They traveled as traders, as tourists, as workers looking for jobs. They smiled and nodded and pretended to be harmless. The variety barely noticed them. Humans were everywhere in the galaxy these days. They were small and soft, and not worth paying attention to. That was exactly what the humans wanted. Lieutenant Kevin Morris arrived on a variety colony world called Thresk Prime. He was 28 years old, with brown hair and an easy smile. He had told the border guards that he was a mechanic looking for work. They had laughed at him. A human mechanic? What could a human possibly fix? Kevin had smiled and thanked them for their time. That night, he slipped out of his hotel room. He moved through the streets like a shadow, avoiding the patrols, staying out of the lights. He reached a large house on the edge of the city. A wealthy house. The home of a variety named Korr-Seth. Kevin knew everything about Korseth. He knew that Korseth had led one of the hunting parties on New Eden. He knew that Korseth had personally killed 37 humans, including 12 children. He knew that Korseth had a collection of human skulls in his trophy room. Kevin also knew that Korseth felt completely safe. Why wouldn't he? He was on his own world, surrounded by his own people. The humans were 300 light years away, probably crying and filing complaints with the Galactic Concord. Kevin reached the wall of Corseth's estate. It was 15 feet high, topped with sensors and razor wire. The security system was state-of-the-art. Kevin had disabled it 2 days ago. He climbed over the wall and dropped silently into the garden. He crossed to the main house. He found the window to Corseth's bedroom. He slipped inside without making a sound. Corseth was sleeping. His massive reptilian body was stretched across a bed made for giants. His claws twitched as he dreamed. Perhaps he was dreaming of the hunt. Perhaps he was reliving the joy of chasing helpless humans through the forest. Kevin stood over him for a long moment. "Corseth," he said quietly. The Varadi's eyes snapped open. He saw the small human standing beside his bed. For a moment, he was confused. Then, he was amused. A human? In his bedroom? This was either a joke or a very stupid burglar. He reached for the human, claws extended, ready to tear this soft creature apart. He never completed the motion. Kevin was gone morning. He left no evidence. He left no trace. The Varadi authorities found Corseth's body and could not understand what had happened. A human had killed one of their greatest hunters? Impossible. Humans were prey. But then it happened again. And again. And again. Across Varadi space, hunters began to die. Some were shot from incredible distances. Some were poisoned. Some simply disappeared and were never found. Each death was different. Each death was carefully planned. And each dead hunter had one thing in common. They had all been at New Eden. The Varati High Council received reports of these deaths and dismissed them as coincidence. Random crimes. Unrelated incidents. The idea that humans were systematically hunting them was ridiculous. But deep down, in the ancient part of their reptilian brains, the Varadi were beginning to feel something they had not felt in thousands of years. Fear. Because for the first time, they were not the hunters. They were the prey. And the creatures chasing them would not stop until every last one of them was found. The hunt had begun, and humanity would not rest until it was finished. 1 year had passed since the massacre on New Eden. The Varadi High Council sat in their great chamber, surrounded by ancient weapons and hunting trophies from 100 worlds. They were discussing trade agreements when a message arrived. It was from the humans. Counselor Vrathkan opened the message with a bored expression. He expected complaints. He expected demands. He expected the soft whining of a weak species that didn't know its place in the galaxy. The message contained only 6 words. We remember every name. Vrathkan laughed out loud. He showed the message to his fellow counselors. They all laughed. The humans were trying to threaten them? These small, clawless creatures who died so easily under Varadi weapons? It was the funniest thing they had heard in years. Vrathkan deleted the message and returned to discussing trade. 3 days later, his personal shuttle exploded during takeoff. The investigation found no mechanical failure. No accident. Someone had placed a bomb on board. Someone who knew exactly when Vrathkan would be traveling. The council appointed a new member to replace him. Counselor Threx Warren was a decorated hunter who had personally participated in the New Eden attack. He was proud of his trophies. He kept a human child's skull on his desk. 2 weeks after his appointment, Threx Warren was shot through the head while giving a speech. The bullet came from 3 kilometers away. No one saw the shooter. No one heard the shot. One moment Threx Warren was alive, and the next moment he was dead. The council began to panic. They appointed heavy security. They moved to a secret location. They surrounded themselves with the best warriors their species had. Surely they were safe now. Surely the humans could not reach them here. The third counselor lasted 1 month. He was poisoned. The toxin was something the Varadi doctors had never seen before. It worked slowly, painfully, and there was no cure. He spent his final days screaming. Now the Verati understood. Now they finally realized what was happening. The humans were hunting them. On the colony world of Verati Prime 7, a famous hunting master named Skorveth was running for his life. He had been running for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of fleeing through jungles and mountains and swamps. 6 weeks of looking over his shoulder. 6 weeks of pure terror. Skorveth had killed 63 humans during the New Eden attack. He had been proud of that number. He had mounted his trophies on the wall of his lodge and invited friends to admire them. He had told stories about the hunt, about how the humans had cried and begged and tried to protect their children. Now his lodge was ashes. His friends were dead, and the humans would not stop chasing him. Lieutenant Kevin Morris led the team that pursued Skorveth. There were only 4 humans in the team. Kevin, Corporal Diana Flynn, Sergeant Marcus Cole, and Private Jennifer Webb. 4 soft, clawless humans against a giant reptilian warrior who had killed dozens of their kind. The Verati should have been able to escape easily. He was faster. He was stronger. He knew this land. All he had to do was outrun them, but he couldn't. Every time Skorveth stopped to rest, the humans appeared behind him. Every time he thought he had lost them, they found his trail again. Every time he tried to call for help, he discovered that the humans had already destroyed the communication towers. They had cut off every escape route. They had planned this hunt down to the smallest detail, and they never, ever stopped. Diana Flynn was tracking Skorveth's footprints through the mud. "He's heading for the extraction point," she whispered. 2 more kilometers." Kevin nodded. "He's tired, confused. He doesn't understand why we won't give up." "None of them do," Diana replied. "They found Skorveth hiding in a cave." The mighty hunter was huddled against the back wall, his scales pale with exhaustion. He had not slept in days. He had not eaten in longer. He looked at the 4 humans with something in his eyes that he had never felt before. Fear. Pure, animal fear. "You hunt us?" Kevin said, standing over him. "You thought we were prey. You thought we were weak because we have no claws. Because we have no armor. Because we die easily." Skorveth tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. He had screamed for help so many times. No help had come. The humans had made sure of that. "On our world," Kevin continued, "our ancestors hunted animals that were bigger and faster and stronger than us. We couldn't catch them in a sprint. We couldn't fight them with our bare hands. But we could follow them. Day after day. Night after night. We could walk when they had to run. We could keep going when they had to stop." He knelt down to look the Verati in the eyes. "You made a mistake, Skorveth. You looked at us and saw prey. But we were never prey. We were always hunters. We just prefer not to hunt thinking beings. We prefer peace. We prefer kindness. But you forced us to remember what we are." Skorveth finally found his voice. "What are you?" He whispered. Kevin didn't answer. He didn't need to. Across Verati space, the same scene repeated itself hundreds of times. Human teams tracked down every hunter who had participated in New Eden. Some were killed quickly. Some were captured and brought before human courts. Some died running, their hearts giving out from exhaustion and fear. It didn't matter how they died. What mattered was that they all died. The Verati military tried to fight back. They sent warships to protect their colonies. They deployed soldiers to guard their hunters. But the humans didn't fight fair. They didn't meet the Verati in open battle. They struck from the shadows. They attacked supply lines. They destroyed communication networks. They turned the Verati's own strategies against them. The hunters had become the hunted. And they had no idea how to escape. Admiral Patricia Cole received regular reports on the progress of the hunt. Each report contained names. The names of Verati who had been found. The names of humans who had been avenged. She kept a copy of the New Eden victim list on her desk. Every time a hunter was killed, she crossed off the corresponding human names. How many left? Captain Samuel West asked. Patricia checked her list. 47 hunters still alive. We'll find them within the month. And then we make sure the galaxy understands what happened here. We make sure no species ever thinks about hunting humans again. Samuel looked at the list of names. 20,000 humans had died on New Eden. Now, 1 year later, nearly every one of their killers was dead. The Verati Empire was crumbling. Their colonies were in chaos. Their leadership was destroyed, all because they had thought humans were easy prey. The Galactic Concord is asking questions, Samuel said. They want to know what we're doing. Patricia smiled coldly. Let them ask. When we're finished, they'll have their answer. The hunt continued. It would not stop until the last name was crossed off the list. It would not stop until justice was complete. Humanity had remembered every name, and humanity never forgot. The Galactic Concord was the great gathering of civilizations. Hundreds of species sent representatives to its massive station, floating in the neutral space between empires. Here, wars were prevented. Here, treaties were signed. Here, the galaxy tried to maintain peace. Today, the Concord was in chaos. Ambassador Linda Hayes stood at the central podium, facing representatives from every major species in known space. She was a small woman with silver hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple black suit. She carried no weapons. She looked completely harmless. The alien delegates knew better than to believe that now. The Verati Empire has collapsed, announced the Concord speaker, a tall being made of crystal and light. Their military is destroyed. Their government has fallen. Their colonies have declared independence. Ambassador Hayes, the Concord demands an explanation. Linda nodded politely. Of course. What would you like to know? Did humanity do this? Yes. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted questions. Some demanded answers. Some demanded punishment. The Verati had been a major power in the galaxy. Now they were nothing, and everyone knew who was responsible. Linda waited for the noise to die down. She was patient. Humans were always patient. 2 years ago, she began, the Verati attacked a human colony called New Eden. They killed 20,000 people. Men, women, and children. They hunted our people for sport. They broadcast the killings as entertainment. She paused to let that sink in. We filed no complaint with this Concord. We asked for no help. We did not retreat or hide. Instead, we did what humans have always done when someone hunts us. We hunted them back. Council Mreth of the Kethani raised a limb. The Kethani were an insectoid species known for their logic and precision. You speak as if you have eliminated an entire civilization. That would be genocide. That would be a crime against galactic law. Linda shook her head. We did not commit genocide. The Verati species still exists. Their civilians were not harmed. Their families were protected. We targeted only those who participated in the hunt. The warriors, the hunters, the killers. But their society has collapsed, Mreth insisted. Yes, because their society depended on their warrior class. When we eliminated every hunter who had touched our people, we removed the foundation of their civilization. That was their problem, not ours. The chamber fell silent. The delegates were beginning to understand something terrible. The humans had not acted in anger. They had not lashed out blindly. They had studied the Verati carefully. They had identified exactly how to destroy their civilization. And then they had done it with surgical precision. "This is not justice," shouted a delegate from the Venthry. "This is revenge. This is murder." Linda turned to face the Venthry representative. The Venthry were tall, elegant beings who considered themselves the most civilized species in the galaxy. They looked down on younger races like humanity. "The Venthry," Linda said calmly. 100 years ago, your species attempted to domesticate humans. You captured ships full of our colonists. You tried to breed us like animals." The Venthry delegate went pale. That was a different government. That was long ago. Yes, and where is the Venthry Empire now? Where are the noble families who ran those breeding programs? The delegate did not answer. He didn't need to. Everyone in the chamber knew the answer. The Venthry Empire had collapsed 80 years ago. Their ruling class had been systematically eliminated by unknown forces. They had blamed it on civil war, on economic problems, on bad luck. Now they understood what had really happened. "The Thraxi tried to enslave our colonists 50 years ago," Linda continued. "The Morden tried to harvest our bodies for biological components. The Sokari wanted to use our brains as computing parts. Every species that hunted humans has faced the same fate." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate. "We do not seek war. We do not want conquest. We prefer peace, trade, and friendship. But we have one rule that cannot be broken. If you hunt humans, we will hunt you back. And we will not stop until justice is complete." The speaker stepped forward. "Ambassador Hayes, the Concord cannot permit member species to wage private wars against each other. There must be consequences for your actions." Linda smiled. It was a polite smile, a diplomatic smile, but there was something cold underneath it. "You are welcome to try to punish us. Many species have tried. They are no longer members of this Concord. They are historical footnotes. They are warnings that other civilizations tell their children." She gathered her documents and prepared to leave. "Humanity prefers peace," she repeated. "We really do. We would rather be your trading partners than your enemies. We would rather exchange culture and science than weapons and death. But if any species in this chamber chooses to hunt our people, they will face the same fate as the Virati." She paused at the door. "We remember every name. We remember every life taken. And we will chase our enemies to the end of the universe if necessary. Not because we enjoy killing, but because we refuse to be prey. Not ever. Not for anyone." The chamber was completely silent as she left. After she was gone, the delegates looked at each other with new understanding. For years, they had considered humans a minor species, newcomers, children playing in the adults' world. Now they realized their mistake. Humanity was not a child. Humanity was a sleeping predator, a creature that preferred peace but was capable of terrible things when awakened. A species that could be kind and generous and friendly, but also cold and patient and absolutely relentless when someone crossed the line. The Virati had crossed that line. Now they barely existed. The Concord passed a new resolution that day. It was called the Human Protection Agreement. Every member species signed it. The agreement stated that any attack on human civilians would be considered an attack on the entire Concord. Any species that hunted humans would face immediate sanctions and isolation. It was not really about protecting humans. Humans had proven they could protect themselves. It was about protecting everyone else from what would happen if they made the same mistake as the Virati. Ambassador Linda Hayes returned to her ship with a satisfied expression. The message had been delivered. The galaxy understood now. Hunting humans was no longer a sport. It was a death sentence. The Virati would rebuild eventually. In a few thousand years, they might even return to space travel. But they would carry this lesson in their collective memory forever. They would teach their children about the soft creatures who had destroyed their empire. They would warn future generations never, ever to make the same mistake. And across the galaxy, every other species would remember too. The humans were friendly. The humans were peaceful. The humans made wonderful trading partners and allies. But never, under any circumstances, should anyone hunt the humans, because the humans always hunted back. And they never stopped until the job was done. 300 years had passed since the HFY War. The galaxy had changed in countless ways. New species had risen. Old empires had fallen. Technology had advanced beyond what anyone in that earlier age could have imagined. But some things remained the same. Captain Ryan Bennett sat in a cantina on Nexus Station, the largest trading hub in known space. The station was home to millions of beings from hundreds of different worlds. Here, a human could share a drink with an insectoid Kethany, argue politics with a crystalline Shardian, or trade stories with the tentacled Marathi. Ryan was doing exactly that. He sat at a corner table with traders and travelers from a dozen species. The atmosphere was warm and friendly. Someone told a joke, and everyone laughed together. This was what the galaxy was supposed to be. Different beings sharing stories, learning from each other. An elderly Kethany merchant named Threx4 leaned close to Ryan. The old insect's compound eyes reflected the cantina's lights. "I have always wondered something, Captain," Threx4 said. "The Varadi were not the last species to test humanity, were they?" Ryan took a long drink before answering. "No, they were not the last. Tell me about the others." "I am old enough to remember rumors, but I was young during those times. I never knew the full truth." Ryan looked around the table. Several other aliens were listening now. They had all heard stories about human history. They had all been warned by their parents and teachers. But few had ever heard a human speak about it directly. "The Thraxi came about a century after the Varadi," Ryan began. "They were slavers. They saw humans as cheap labor for their mining operations. They captured 3 colony ships with 10,000 people aboard. What happened to them?" asked a young Marathi trader. "The Thraxi no longer exist as a unified species. They scattered across the galaxy. Their homeworld is a nature preserve now. No sentient beings allowed." The table was quiet. The Marathi trader's tentacles twitched nervously. "Before the Thraxi, there were the Morden," Ryan continued. "They had advanced biotechnology. They thought human organs would be useful for their experiments. They raided settlements on the outer rim, harvesting people like crops. And they? The Morden exist only in historical databases. Their entire species disappeared within a single generation after they touched us." A Shardian scientist spoke up. His crystalline body hummed with curiosity. "Surely some of these accounts are exaggerated. No species could systematically destroy so many others." Ryan shook his head. "We didn't destroy them." "Not exactly. We just removed their ability to threaten anyone ever again. The Varadi still exist. They're rebuilding on their homeworld. In another few centuries, they might return to space. But they remember what happened. They teach their children. They will never hunt again." He finished his drink and looked out the viewport at the endless stars. There were others too. The Sukari thought human neural tissue would make excellent computing material. The Venturi tried to breed us like livestock. The Crick 7 Collective attempted to upload human minds into their networks without consent. All gone? All broken. All collapsed. All reduced to shadows of what they once were. The elderly Kethany clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "And yet, here you sit, sharing drinks with us, acting like any other friendly species. How do you reconcile those two sides of humanity?" Ryan considered the question carefully. It was something humans had thought about for centuries. How could they be both the kindest and the most dangerous species in the galaxy? How could they build hospitals and orphanages across 1,000 worlds while also being capable of such complete destruction? We didn't choose to be this way, Ryan finally said. Our world made us. On Earth, millions of years ago, we survived by being persistent. Our ancestors couldn't run fast or fight with claws, but they could chase prey for days without stopping. They could track an animal until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could keep going when everything else had to rest. He tapped his chest, where his heart was beating. This is designed for endurance. Our bodies cool themselves through sweat, so we don't overheat during long chases. Our minds are built to focus on a goal and never give up. When someone decides to hunt us, that same instinct turns on them. The Marathi trader looked uncomfortable. So you are saying that if we ever harmed humans, you would chase us forever? Ryan smiled gently. We would prefer to be friends. We really would. Look around this table. Look at this station. Humans have been good neighbors for 300 years. We trade fairly. We honor our agreements. We help species in need. We've cured diseases and shared technology and built bridges between cultures. He leaned forward. But yes, if you hunted our children for sport, if you enslaved our people, if you harvested our bodies, then we would never stop coming for you. Not because we enjoy it, not because we want revenge, but because we cannot be prey. It goes against everything we are. The table was silent for a long moment. Then the elderly Kethany laughed softly. I will tell my grandchildren this story. They should understand. Good, Ryan replied. The galaxy is full of predators who think strength and speed are everything. They see a species with no claws and no armor and no venom, and they think that species is weak. They make the mistake of confusing gentleness with helplessness. He stood up and left money on the table for his drinks. Let them know what happens when they choose the wrong prey. Let them know that humanity will chase them across centuries if necessary. Let them know that we remember every name of every person ever taken from us. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. Let them know that hunting humans became a death sentence. And it always will be. He left the cantina and walked through the busy corridors of Nexus Station. All around him, beings from hundreds of worlds went about their business. They bought and sold goods. They made friends and enemies. They lived their lives in the great tapestry of galactic civilization. And they all knew the same lesson that their parents had taught them, that their grandparents had taught their parents. Going back for generations, be kind to the humans. Trade with them. Learn from them. They make wonderful friends and terrible enemies. They will give you the shirt off their back if you need it. They will cross the galaxy to help a stranger in trouble. But never, ever hunt them. Because the humans never forget. The humans never give up. The humans will chase you to the end of time itself if you harm their people. And in a galaxy full of predators and prey, the humans had proven themselves to be something new. Something the universe had never seen before. They were both. They were the gentle traders who shared medicine with plague-stricken worlds. They were the merciless hunters who had erased entire civilizations from the stars. They were kind and they were terrible, and they were absolutely, completely, impossibly persistent. They were human. And hunting them was the last mistake any species would ever make. The stars continued to shine. The galaxy continued to turn. And somewhere on 1,000 worlds, children of 100 different species were being tucked into bed with the same warning. Never hunt the humans. Never ever hunt the humans, because the humans always hunt back, and they never, ever stop.